Good morning, Snapchat. Matt Lamarche here, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. This is a story I've wanted to tell for a long time. So, yes, you heard my son there. We aren't moving yet. We're about to go. And this is going to be a long story, so I hope you can hang in here with me. I think you're going to enjoy it. All right, so obviously we got to do a lot of this hands-free today with the kid in the car. So anyway, the year was 1963. So, my dad's mom's mom got a big 50th birthday present in 1963. I don't think they really understood, though, the impact that they were going to have on 4 or 5 generations beyond them of Lamarches. Yes, this boat was given to my great-grandmother for her 50th birthday. And they had many boats growing up. I grew up on the water. My dad, me, all of us learned to water ski and kneeboard behind this boat. And now we're passing it on to future generations. Story though, several years ago, my grandmother, my dad's mom, sold the boat because it wasn't running and no one had the time or money to fix it. So after searching for 4 years on Craigslist and eBay to try and find our boat, I finally found it. I found it on Craigslist. It was like $300. It had trees and grass and stuff growing in it. All the seats were out of it. The engine was torn apart. So there used to be a tree growing in the middle of the boat here. Grass, moss, I mean a whole ecosystem in the boat. So literally the only parts that we kept were this windshield and the actual deck itself, the top part, and then the hull. That's it, that's all original. The engine, the drive, the steering, all the control, I mean literally everything was ripped out of the boat, started completely over. Even the floor had holes in it, and all of the flotation, the styrofoam, had completely just been water soaked. So we replaced all the flotation and put it in a new floor. The whole process from start to finish, to start tearing it all down, to completing it, putting it back on the water, was like a 4.5-5 year process. It took forever. It's not easy. It took a lot more time than I thought, and a lot more money. And there were times that I was like, I'm just gonna give up on this thing. Alright, so we're stopped for a minute. There were a lot of people that saw that boat with the trees and stuff growing out of it. And even, I think some of my family members were like, that boat's never running again. Just trying to find it on Craigslist even was such a battle because I would give up on it sometimes. I was like, I'm never going to find this thing. And then one day I just type it in, sure enough, it popped right up. I mean, the serendipity enough to find it, much less to be able to work on it for 4.5 or 5 years, it just made finishing it, the completion, so much sweeter when people saw it. And it's funny now because I look back on it and I'm like, what if I never found it, you know? Would never get to experience it again, right? And to me, that's kind of how life is, right? Like, what if you just gave up and you were so close to finding it? Something just kept pushing and pushing and pushing me to look. And I didn't look every day, but I looked, you know, once a week, once a month sometimes. Always knowing that there was a chance. So in addition to having all the great memories that I had, I also wanted to make sure that my kids had an opportunity. That's the other thing that kept pushing and pushing and pushing me. Here's a picture of me though on the boat when I was probably 4, 5, 6 years old, something like that. So that was in the mid 80s. That meant that the boat was already over 20 years old. So I think it was somewhere like in the mid 90s, maybe late 90s that Grandma sold the boat and didn't tell anyone. This is how we found out. We went over to our house one day, obviously for Christmas, Thanksgiving, something, birthday, and we go down in the basement. We used to have a ping pong table set up down there, right? You saw the basement, the boat, and the ping pong table were right there next to each other. And we walked down and no boat! Grandma, what? There were a couple of my family members that were genuinely mad with her because she had gotten rid of it. You got to remember, we were in our late teens, getting into our early 20s, and we thought surely, you know, it'll just be sitting there one day, a group of us will start working on it and we'll fix it and make it all better again, right? So evidently she had other plans and didn't tell any of us, and we were devastated. So that's when the search began. So as I told you, 4 years on Craigslist, eBay, just trying to find a 1963 Glastron, the 174 stern drive. I mean, couldn't be any more specific, right? Like, I knew exactly what I was looking for. So I searched it, find it, start working on it. And here's where it gets really, really, really fun. Before I started working on it, we were keeping it behind my aunt and uncle's shed. My grandmother was sometimes 20 feet from the boat, didn't even know we had bought it back. Literally, I mean, like Easter egg hunting. She was 20 feet from the boat, didn't know it was there, didn't know that we had bought it back, and didn't even know that we were planning to fix it! So I told you all the stuff that we did to fix it, but I also didn't tell you that I was working for a boat dealer at the time. I got great discounts on parts, labor, and had tons of help along the way, fortunately, because there's no way I could have done this by myself. So we work on it, we replace a lot of parts, we replace the engine and the drive and everything like I told you before. And it was the summer of 2011. The boat's almost 50 years old, half a century, right? The paint is almost done. We're in like August of 2011 now. The paint was literally the last thing that we had to do, just some final little detail work after that. Labor Day kind of comes and goes, right? Early September. And about a week after Labor Day, we finally get it on the water and running in all of its glorious, beautiful state now. So for the reveal, we had to make it extra special. I rented a big pontoon boat. We got the entire family out there, all my parents and aunts and uncles and cousins and wives, fiancés, boyfriends, girlfriends. I mean, we must have had 20 or 25 people on this boat at one point. So I get my dad to drive this big pontoon, big party cruiser carrying all these people out into the middle of the lake, right? And meanwhile, I'm behind in the other boat that Grandma hasn't seen in like 15 years. And here's the video of the great reveal. I still get goosebumps watching that video. It just made it all worth it. Also, I'm glad we captured it on video, you know, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that would have never happened. So at least we have that to look back on, right? Thank you guys so much for all the stories and remembrances and heirlooms. And I mean, good grief, I could just go on and on and on, but thank you. And thank you also for reliving the decade-long process to find it and fix it, and it's just been a lot of fun to relive that moment. And I'm glad that I got to do it with all of you guys, and also share the story with you guys. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we got a car show tomorrow, so check us out.